Do you see what I'm talking about? I want you to understand why so many of our boys are being diagnosed with this made-up disorder that they don't even have. Because the criteria are so general that any human being on any day of the week can get the diagnosis. Now, trivia question of the day. There used to be something called attention deficit disorder in this book. It was taken out. And now it's only ADHD, primarily hyperactive, or primarily inattentive, or combined. My question to you is, why did they take ADD out? Before there was an ADD and a separate ADHD. There is no more ADD. Anybody who's still walking around with that disorder had it for about 10 years. You follow me? Now my question to you is, why did they drop ADD and make everybody ADHD, primarily hyper, primarily inattentive, or combined? Why did they get rid of ADD? Anybody want to take a crack? Yes, sir. True, it was very ambiguous, but the main reason is because there is no drug that can make you pay attention. So when a child gets diagnosed with ADD, it don't lead to a prescription because no drug can make you pay attention. Do you follow me? They can only give a drug to do what? Slow down your central nervous system so you can sit still in the classroom long enough to be miseducated. But no drug can make you pay attention. So they got rid of ADD. Now any child who gets the diagnosis is either primarily hyper, primarily inattentive, but since it's all ADHD now, everybody can get hooked on crack. And the Ritalin is the chemical equivalent of speed. Did you know that? The same illegal drug speed that could put a black man in jail for 10 years, you can give it to a black boy and nothing happens to you. In 1960, the United States government put together a committee to study the long-term effects of psychotropic drugs on the black community. And they found that it would be very, very beneficial to do so. So in our community today, most of us are hooked on some form of a drug. If it ain't psychotropic, it's cancer medicine, heart medicine, diabetes medicine. You'd be hard-pressed to find a person in the black community who isn't on some form of a drug or another. Important to understand. But 70% of all black boys diagnosed with ADHD don't have an active father figure in their life. Since the beginning of time, you know that when you don't get the attention from your father at home, you go to school looking for it. That's been around forever. But 30 years ago, it wasn't ADHD. But now you have people getting paid off black parents' inability to raise them sons in the absence of the father from the home. Most of them don't need nothing but a man in their life. When I was growing up, I was never allowed to be ADHD because my father wouldn't allow it. I was never allowed to be conduct disorder because my father wouldn't allow it. I was never allowed to have oppositional defiant disorder because my father wouldn't allow it. You understand? Most of these diagnoses come from poor discipline. How do you differentiate between the three? ADHD, conduct disorder, ODD. Conduct disorder is physical acting out. Okay, a child with conduct disorder hits and they abuse other kids. Again, lack of discipline, not a real disorder. Oppositional defiant is a mouthy child. You ask them to do something? No. Go to school? No. Do your work? No. But an ODD kid does not physically attack. Conduct kid physically attacks. And of course, ADHD is supposed to be a what? Brain-based neurological problem, right? But when's the last boy you see diagnosed with ADHD was given an MRI or a CAT scan? It doesn't happen. Most black kids who get diagnosed with ADHD get diagnosed off of the referral from the teacher and the parent, and that's it. Social engineering. First, we got to start with the definition. What is engineering? The planning of bringing about something, especially when done with ingenuity or what? Secretiveness. This is the dictionary definition. An engineer, a planning of bringing about of something, especially when done with ingenuity or secretiveness. What is genocide? Definition from the dictionary: the systematic killing of all the people from a national, ethnic, religious group or an attempt to do this. Why did I underline all? The reason why I underline all is because there are a lot of Africans, not just in America, but all around the world, who think that if they dress a certain way, or talk a certain way, or live a certain way, or drive a certain way, or marry a certain way, that somehow the dominant structure of this society will forget that they're Africans. And anybody who believes such a thing doesn't totally understand white supremacy and how it operates. You can never be on the in group. President Obama included. I predict right here in front of you that when he's no longer president, you're going to see a whole slew of negative information about that man come out. Why? Because it is the arrogance of white supremacy that cannot tolerate any black person who thinks that you've been accepted by the in-group. It cannot happen. Look at O.J. Simpson. He thought he was on the in-group. Deadly sin number one. Let's talk about abortion. This is a quote. Several years ago, 17,000 aborted black babies were found in a dumpster outside a pathology laboratory in Los Angeles. 12 to 15,000 were observed to be black. Did you know that? 17,000 aborted babies in LA. What it's not telling you is that the dumpster where these 17,000 black aborted babies were found was right near a United States government testing laboratory. The United States still has not ratified the 1948 United Nations Genocide Conventions, which made crime of genocide an international crime. Why has the United States government not ratified that document from the Geneva Convention pertaining to genocide? Because the government continues to be, has always been, about the business of getting rid of you. And most of us, when we celebrate the end of slavery, and I don't understand how we celebrate 4th of July, if I can regress for a moment. What were you on July 4th, 1776? You were a slave, and you didn't get your freedom, not with Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which he made in 1862. It went into effect 1863. That didn't free you. That only freed who? Slaves in states that were currently in armed rebellion. So if Jefferson Davis and the Confederacy had already withdrew from the United States of America, when Lincoln said you were free, did it mean anything? No. Because he executed an order over a new nation over which he had no control. And then in 1865, it still didn't matter. Slavery ended in December of 1865 with the passage of the 13th Amendment by the United States Congress. December of 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation meant absolutely nothing. And anybody who celebrates July 4th, I need to question your sanity too. Okay? Because you'll celebrate the freedom of your former conqueror, colonizer, and slave master, but you didn't have yours yet, and you still don't today. Where's your supermarket? Where's your planes? Where's your ships? Where's your submarines? Where's your hospitals? Where's your multinational corporations? You don't have none, but you'll say you're free because you drive a nice car with big rims on it. But what do you control? And one of the things we thought to realize black people say, like in Philadelphia, you probably all heard we had a situation where a group of black campers were told that they couldn't swim in a certain pool. They gave the check back and said, I got to go somewhere else. And people say, well, I thought this was over. One thing you got to understand about white racists is never over until every last one of you are gone. HIV is not an accident, good people. HIV is what? A strategy for what? Population control. Abortion is a strategy for what? Population control. Ebola, West Nile. And AIDS, they would have you believe what? Where did they say AIDS come from? To this day, where are they saying AIDS come from? A monkey in the Congo. Listen. And this is the official line of the U.S. government. A monkey in the Congo, Central Africa, which is the richest piece of real estate on the face of the earth. Let me say that again. That's why there's so much fighting over there, which is engineered by Western nations. So while we fight against each other, they run out with all the wealth. They do it here, they do it in Africa, they do it in the Caribbean. Because black folks, if there's one thing you can be counted on, is to hate one another and fight one another. That is your international reputation. All you need is one bag of weed, one gun, and just stand back and watch. But anyway, they said that a monkey in the Congo cohabitated with a black woman. And that's how AIDS came to be. And Ebola. Now, they don't say how the disease jumped from the monkey to the woman. So my question to you, who in here is foolish enough to think that AIDS and Ebola comes from a monkey cohabitating with a black woman? But that is the dominant line of the government. If you don't believe me, go and research it right now.
Here to prove it are three of the most stunning and condemning documents in biological warfare history. First is a never declassified congressional record of 1969 showing the Department of Defense requested $10 million to develop, quote, synthetic biological agents for germ warfare, end quote, through the National Academy of Sciences, National Research Council, that is, the NAS-NRC. That's nearly half of the amount of money given to all of biological weaponry that year. These new laboratory creations were descriptively and functionally identical to HIV/AIDS. Mind you, this was 15 years before the contested discovery of the AIDS virus by this man, Dr. Robert Gallo, who, as you will see in a minute, oversaw Litton Bionetics, the Army's 6th leading biological weapons contractor at that time. Bioweapons were cheaper to make and could be made to target certain people, even certain ethnic groups, even certain ethnic groups, even certain ethnic groups. According to congressional records and his biographer, Time magazine's managing editor, Walter Isaacson, Kissinger selected the option presented by Admiral Zumwalt to develop AIDS-like and Ebola-like bioweapons, and the contract went to his White House colleague's company, Litton Bionetics. There is now no doubt that Dr. Gallo officiated the development of these AIDS complex viruses. His group at Bionetics combined leukemia, lymphoma, and sarcoma viruses from various species of animals nearly 15 years before he was credited by the Department of Health and Human Services for having discovered the cause of AIDS. These documents, including the U.S. government contracts, best explain how AIDS emerged on 2 far-removed continents in black Africans and gay New Yorkers by 1978. These were precisely the populations that received the first hepatitis B vaccines, produced in Litton's chimpanzees just 4 years earlier.
Third-party governments were established to protect the commercial interest of the colonists. Typically, the government made war with the original inhabitants. And for those of you who don't know, the weapon that was used in that was disease. The Europeans had certain diseases such as smallpox, diphtheria, and other things, which they brought with them. And that was the most effective tool that they had to wage war against the original inhabitants, who had no resistance to those diseases. So again, it wasn't by sword or by gunpowder, it was by bacteria, germs.
You may have heard that Native Americans were killed by smallpox, but here's the sinister part. We have evidence of Europeans plotting to infect them. Here's the actual communication. You're looking at a picture of the letter where they conspired to use germ warfare in order to exterminate Native Americans. They uncovered these letters where they actually plot biological warfare in order to exterminate Native Americans. Amherst first raised the possibility of giving the Indians infected blankets in a letter to Colonel Henry Bouquet, who would lead reinforcements to Fort Pitt. Bouquet discussed the matter in a postscript to a letter to Amherst on July 13, 1763. Here's a smoking gun. P.S. I would try to inoculate the Indians by means of blankets that may fall in their hands, taking care, however, not to get the disease myself. As it is a pity to oppose good men against them, I wish we could make use of this Spaniard's method and hunt them with English dogs, supported by rangers and some light horse, who I think would effectively extirpate or remove that vermin. On July 16th, Amherst replied, also in a postscript, P.S. You will do well to try to inoculate the Indians by means of blankets, as well as to try every other method that can serve to extirpate this execrable race. I should be very glad your scheme for hunting them down with dogs could take effect, but England is at too great a distance to think of that at the present. On July 26th, Bouquet wrote back, I received yesterday your Excellency's letters of 16th with your enclosures. The signal for Indian messengers and all of your directions will be observed. Extirpating, which means exterminating, Native Americans.
Let me get this straight, Bob. America's founding fathers, they came over here, colonized America, made it the great land that we are today. You're saying they exterminated a whole race of people?
You must have been educated
You
in
don't
Chicago.
really believe that, do you?